FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. It's Kerry Lutz, and the date is November 24th, 2015. We're getting real close to Thanksgiving, and there is a lot to be thankful for, regardless of the turmoil in the world. But speaking of turmoil in the world, well, we've got former Congressman with us, John LeBoutillier, a frequent guest on the show. And John, it's great to have you back on.
Kerry, it's been too long. Happy to be on. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your listeners. And we do have a lot to be thankful for. And one of them is the exciting campaign to discuss.
It is exciting and certainly shocking in many regards, but you've been predicting, if not Trump by name, a Trump-like figure to just take over the process, and you've been right on the money.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure that Trump is the ultimate Trump-like figure. In other words, I don't rule out that we could have a third candidate in 2016 who's not Trump, who runs against the Republicans and against Hillary. I think this thing is fraught with revolution, political revolution all over the place. Trump is out there, very strong, dominating the Republican campaign. That's the hugest news. All these other candidates look like pygmies compared to him. But he is a human being. He does make mistakes. And just because he's doing great today doesn't mean he'll be doing great in 3 months. He might not be.
Yeah, that's very, very possible. One thing that makes me wonder about that, though, is the intensity of his support and the crowds that he's been getting. I mean, he's just blown everybody away. And
Correct.
I was watching yesterday in Columbus, Ohio, and, I was thinking Elmer Gantry. I thought his command of the crowd, his ability to elicit emotional responses and to connect with them. I don't remember seeing anybody like this other than, I'd say, Reagan, in that people weren't screaming in the aisles so much for Reagan, but his ability to look into the camera and feel like he's looking into your soul. I just don't remember.
Well, if you go back, if you go back to 92.
Yeah.
And you look at the Ross Perot rallies, they were very similar. It's the same sort of thing. A guy's outside the system, railing against the system as a corrupt mess. It's easy to say it because you're not responsible for it. He can say whatever he wants. He has no record to run on, which is, in politics, a great thing. And we've had this before. This isn't anything new. And he's doing great, Trump is, but don't rule out other things coming along in the next 8 or 9 months that eclipse Trump. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree with you there. For sure, it's uncertain. But at the present time...
Let me give you an example of why this thing is very tenuous. Yesterday it came out, the latest poll in New Hampshire has in almost every state, Trump way ahead. He's like at 30-some-odd points. The next 2 guys are at like 15 or something, Cruz and Carson, or Rubio and Carson. They're all way behind. That's New Hampshire today, right? The pollster decided to do an experiment and add in Mitt Romney into the mix to see what would happen. And when he put Romney in, Romney wins so overwhelmingly, and Trump is reduced to almost like single digits, just like that, by the putting in of this thing of Romney, who is not an anti-establishment guy. He's not the revolution. And yeah, he lives in New Hampshire, and he was a governor next door, and he won the New Hampshire primary 4 years ago. So there's a lot of things there. But what does that tell you about the strength of Trump? If a stiff like Romney gets put into the race, bang, all the numbers get jumbled up. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm saying that none of this means a thing. It can all change. It's going to change. There's going to be other stuff happening that we can't predict.
Mm-hmm. I think you're correct on that for sure. We've seen a lot of front runners fade in the past, and somehow the people just get their fill of them, and just dump them like a hot potato, or a mistake gets made. I don't know. The act runs thin. So I can see what you're saying. But on the other hand, this guy is saying the things that many of you out there feel. And, and really, you got to...
He's connecting. He's connecting. And since Paris, Kerry, which is 11 days ago, he'd had a bad night the night before Paris when he did that ranting hour and a half speech in Iowa where he swore a lot and he really went after Carson over the belt and what the hell's wrong with the voters of Iowa, and I'm going to bomb the you-know-what out of ISIS. Really was sort of out there. And I thought that was going to hurt him, that rant. But the next night, 24 hours later, Paris happened. And so that erased any coverage of the rant. And we've been talking Paris, ISIS, Syrian refugees, everything for the last 11 days. And this plays right into Trump's wheelhouse because Obama looks pathetically weak as he traveled around the world the last week and sort of saying, we're not going to do anything. Let's not talk about ISIS. Let's not spend a lot of time on it. And Trump is the mirror opposite of Obama. Strong, powerful, clear-cut. I'm going to nail the bastards. I'm going to blow them up. I'm not letting any refugees in here. I'm going to monitor Muslims. I'm going to surveil mosques. I'm going to have a national registry. I'm going to waterboard. I mean, the more of this stuff he says in this vacuum of leadership from Washington, he looks great among Republican primary voters.
Yeah, you're correct. And what about the rest of the voters? You think they will fall in line? I mean, and Hillary Clinton, what's going to be with her? You and I both agreed that she's probably not going to be the nominee, but she keeps marching forward relentlessly.
Well, the only way now that she's not going to be the nominee is if the Justice Department is allowed to bring charges against her for something to do with the mishandling of classified information. And I have to be pessimistic about that because when, as a major political party, the Democrats in this case, when have they ever removed their front runner, who's a shoo-in to win the nomination, for Obama to agree to let charges be filed against her? It would devastate the party in the short run. Now, maybe it would help them by getting a different nominee, but whether he's going to let that happen, if there's enough evidence to bring charges. Now, there's a downside. If he doesn't allow that, I think the FBI will leak out some of the evidence and how unhappy they are that Obama's covering this up for Hillary. And so that's something that Obama has to weigh also. Do I want to be accused in my last year as president of covering up something that I didn't do? It's covering up what she did. But I'm going to get tarred by it if I don't step in and do something. My guess is, as of today, they don't know what's going to happen. You know, that this thing is still being investigated. Stories keep coming out, not just about the emails, the server. That's bad. But about a week ago, we had a story about 1001 violation. Federal law number 1001 is a thing that says if you lie to an FBI agent, that is a felony.
Absolutely.
And it's equal to a count of perjury.
Absolutely.
And the story came out that they are looking at this inside the Hillary camp. They didn't say, the story doesn't say if it's Hillary or one of her underlings who apparently may have lied, allegedly may have lied to the FBI. But the fact that they leaked it out, that they're looking into it, in effect expands the probe and the severity of the probe.
Yeah.
And whether they're going to end up whitewashing the whole thing or not, you and I don't know. But if there's one charge brought against Hillary, one, her campaign ends that day. She's finished that day.
And
it's a Democratic administration, Democratic Justice Department. If they file a charge, she can't be running around saying, the Republicans playing politics. Republicans have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, and Republicans haven't had anything to do with leaking all of this information. It's all come from the Democrats. And
it's Valerie Jarrett.
Yeah.
It's Valerie Jarrett in the White House, don't it?
Yeah, and Comey, the head of the FBI, I happen to know somebody who worked closely with him before he got to his higher positions. By all accounts, he is a straight shooter. And if he recommends charges and they're not brought, I think you're right. There will be major leaks from the FBI. Yep. And look, what about if they just go after her aides, Huma Abedin, and the other one, I can't remember her name.
Well, there's Maggie Williams and Jake Sullivan.
Right. And,
well, I mean, the traditional way, if you're the prosecution, you go after the underlings, get them first, and then work your way up the chain and get them to flip against the boss. That might be the way. As I understand it, what I've learned from people is there's an 8-person prosecutorial team in the Justice Department that is working with the FBI to gather the evidence in this case. Once they gather the evidence, they have to make a couple of decisions. Number one, have crimes been broken? And number two, Kerry, can these violations be proven in a court of law to the point where you'd bring the case? Because the feds rarely lose.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't like to lose. They don't want to lose. They won't want to lose this one, obviously. So they have to decide, do we have the evidence and can we win in court? At that point, if the answer is yes to both, they then have to decide if they're going to bring the charges. And that's going to go to the White House. The White House is going to ultimately be able to approve or disapprove that. That's too big a decision just at the Justice Department itself. And that's when Obama has big decisions to make, which we just alluded to. If he says, no, we're not going to prosecute, then all the leaking will go on and he'll get caught up in it. If he does allow the prosecution to go ahead, then he's going to end up picking the nominee because Hillary will be out. There won't be time it won't be Bernie Sanders or Martin O'Malley. Forget that. They're not going to be the nominee. So the Democratic Party has to get its acting together and pick a new nominee. Obama will want Biden.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Biden, maybe they already know they're going to do this, which is why Biden didn't run against Hillary and had that very odd press conference in the Rose Garden to announce he's not running. When have we ever seen a vice president announce at the Rose Garden anything, but especially I'm not running, and have the president of the United States standing right next to him? I found it odd. Now, there aren't many vice presidents who don't run, first of all, but there's one that didn't run. And having the president there sort of gave it the stamp of approval, almost to the point where you could see them coming back to the Rose Garden in 3 months after Hillary is charged, and have the president say, well, in light of Hillary's indictment today or last week or whatever, I've asked the vice president to reconsider. So the president, the party needs a strong nominee, and I think the vice president can do it, blah, 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 and then Biden jumps in. I rule out nothing with this. These people are lawless, and they'll do whatever they want, Kerry.
Yeah, even enforce the law to further their lawlessness. Ironic, huh?
Yeah.
Very ironic. I think you're right, John. There's no love lost between the Clintons and the Obamas. Hey, did you catch that email that got released last week where Clinton's top aide, Huma Abedin, said that Clinton's often confused?
Right. I saw that. But I took that when I read that was the last day of her time as Secretary of State, January 2013. And she had just had that incident with a blood clot and a concussion, and she was wearing those funny glasses. And she, by her own admission, she wasn't well. I don't know that she's confused now. I think that was back then. She's coming off a head injury. I mean, I think that's legit.
Legit, but brings her health into question, and you really
it does.
You got to think. How is this going to shake out? Because obviously that email got released for a reason. right?
Yeah. Well, I guess it was in one of these Freedom of Information Act requests. I'm not quite sure which one it was, but there's a lot of emails getting released through various, so like 6 or 7 FOIA requests going on simultaneously, being administered by different federal judges on different schedules of when they're going to be released. And none of these, by the way, are the 31,000 deleted emails that may be recovered, some of them may be, by the FBI. We don't know about that. That's the real treasure trove, because the ones that are being released are bad enough.
Yeah.
So what
Can
are
you
the
imagine?
ones that she didn't want released? What's in there? Yeah.
You can only imagine what's really there, and all of this thing's got it's complicated political calculus here, but events seem to be out of control there, out of her control. You know, the Clinton War Room, Damage Control Central, not doing a great job. There was another book that came out recently. I don't know if you caught it or not, from Roger Stone, the Clintons' War on Women, and it makes some allegations in there that really, really turn your stomach.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it's out there. I hope it keeps circulating around. The public has a right to know. But I think so much of that has been out for so long. I've just sort of given up any hope that that's going to derail Hillary. That Hillary may derail Hillary. She's a bad candidate.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think 20-year-old scandals are going to do the job. I think that's already cooked into the cake, baked into the cake. Her numbers are what they are, and she can be beaten. And she can be beaten on the issues. We don't even have to get into Bill Clinton's bad behavior. We can just beat her on her 4 years as Secretary of State, the mess of foreign policy.
Oh yes.
And her bad campaign skills. She could be beaten.
Yeah, this we know. She's vulnerable, and her trustworthiness ratings are through the floor.
But did you see on trustworthiness, of all the candidates running for president in the two parties, all 18 of them, whatever, you put them all together, the two most untrustworthy are Hillary and Trump.
Yeah, it's true.
And so they're the two favorites right now to be the two nominees. What does this say about our system that we're on the verge of maybe nominating the two most, in a year when people are unhappy over the lying bastards in Washington, but we're about to nominate the biggest lying bastards of them all.
Yeah. There's a little irony there. You know, there's a little irony. And, well, maybe we put too much stock in the polls, though, sometimes, John?
Yeah. I mean, some polls are better than others. The polls lately have been wrong about everything. They were wrong in Kentucky 2 weeks ago for the governorship. They had the Democrat winning by 5 points. And in the end, the Republican won by 9. Bearden, the new governor.
Yep.
What does that tell us? That they're so wrong that they can't get that right. They were wrong a year ago on almost the entire U.S. Senate situation. They got that wrong, the polls. And they were wrong in Israel last February, too. They all picked Herzog to beat Netanyahu. That didn't work out that way either. So something's going on where the pollsters, and this is not biased because there are a lot of polls on both sides. They're just not getting the right result because they're not reaching the right people anymore, or the people aren't answering or have cell phones or something's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, well, polling ain't what it used to be, John, and we know that. Polling has become news, and that's not necessarily a good thing either, because the underlying candidates should be the news, not their polls.
Yeah, well, the media likes the easy story, which is the head-to-head horse race number. Just give me that. That tells me all I need to know, blah, blah, which it doesn't. The horse race, Kerry against John, that tells you a little something today, but there's other things. Why are people doing what they're doing? What is it that's motivating people? What is the issues that people really care the most about? Yeah. And by the way, on that one, when you ask people an open-ended or you give them a long list, the answer is not just terrorism or the economy, things like that. The actual answer is The majority of people now believe that government is the problem. Corrupt government is the problem. There's a terrible disconnect now between the people and the government. They distrust the government. I'm getting here right now while we're talking. These Pew research numbers that came out Sunday night. Here we go. Only 29% of Americans, Kerry, rate elected officials as generally honest.
That many?
55% said that ordinary Americans would do a better job than elected officials of solving the country's problems. So if that's true, 55% say ordinary Americans would do a better job. No wonder Carson and Trump are doing so well. And no wonder Bush and Kasich and people who've been in forever are doing so badly.
Yeah.
The aura of, I have experience, I know what to do, that's gone. People don't buy it. They think it's a problem, actually.
Well, then that would largely explain the outsider's rise. And the other thing of lobbyists and money, donors really controlling the candidates, owning them lock, stock, and barrel, I think is all part of it.
Right. Yep.
So I guess we're going to know more soon. But the other thing is Trump's out ahead now. Basically, we're in the holiday season where generally the public is not that attuned to what's happening in the political realm. And then February 1st, or right in early February, is the Iowa caucuses, and then New Hampshire. So the idea of unseating Trump or displacing him, bringing him down, they're running out of time.
Well, here's the thing, though. In the latest polls in Iowa, as Carson has begun to deteriorate, Cruz has picked up all of those votes that left Carson. And Cruz is now second place in Iowa with a great organization on the ground, which Trump does not have. Cruz does. So does Carson, by the way. Carson's headed down a bit. Cruz is headed up. He's in second place. He's within single digits of Trump in the latest poll in Iowa. I think he's the guy to keep our eye on in Iowa to pull a surprise, which always happens in Iowa. Late, the last 3-4 weeks, 2 weeks, someone gets hot and zooms up. And right now, Cruz is the one who's poised to be the one. But it's only November, so other people could do it too between now and then.
Perhaps, but no Republican candidate has ever gotten the nod without winning Iowa or New Hampshire. So, you got to think about that. And is Cruz electable? I'm not sure. He certainly has made some good showings in the debates, but that is for another day. Anyway, John, tell us where we find you on the internet.
You find me at johnlebout.com, and you find me on Political Insiders every Sunday night at 7:30 live on the Fox News Channel.
Yeah, and that's something you definitely want to see. And as always, we'll have a link to John's blog in the show notes to this interview on financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Have a great Thanksgiving, John, and we will talk to you after the holiday.
Same to you, Kerry. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.